So we're going to be talking about wrestling up on our opponent with single legs, but we're meeting resistance when my opponent's going to sprawl. Now essentially, the goal is to deny my opponent the back of my head. If my opponent can expose the back of my head, that gives my opponent guillotine dangers or guillotine attacks, right? It also means that now my opponent is able to push my head down towards the mat, making his sprawl a bit more effective. So when we're playing around, I just stand with left foot forward. When we're playing around and we're shooting up our single leg, usually we want to start reaching with our inside hand, okay? So we'll usually start off with some type of grips at the upper body, so just standing low. We're usually standing up or starting off with grips at the upper body. As my opponent pulls away, I usually look to grab behind my opponent's knee like so. Now from here, I'm going to use this knee grip to start pulling myself up into this single leg. So from here, I pull myself up. Now ideally, I want to get into good posture where my forehead's facing my opponent and I can start building up off of my knees. But we're going to say that my opponent was able to expose the back of my head and not turn around, but go into sprawls. My opponent's starting to sprawl here, exactly. Now, when I'm here in this position, it's very important that I don't try to hold on to this leg for dear life, okay? Not saying that you can't. There are some things that you can do while keeping your hands locked, but I feel the most effective thing to do is make sure that my head doesn't get pushed down. So when I'm here, I grab the inside of the knee. I'm met with the resistance. I post first on the mat. This allows me to keep my head up for just a second. Now, I'm gonna start using a right Kosoto hook to start getting angle on my opponent. So from here, knee comes underneath me, I step around with the Kosoto hook, and I drop like so. Now, my opponent's not gonna be stupid, he's gonna insert a whizzer. All right, this way I can't take my opponent's back. Don't make the mistake of reaching to the hip too early, okay? What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to make sure that your shoulder comes below your opponent's hamstring first, and now it's fairly easy for you to start hiking up this leg. So from here, we shelf this leg, and now it's safe for us to start working around behind our opponent, all right? One thing that we can do, we can start going for doubles to sit our opponent down, all right? Another one of my favorites is coming around behind my opponent and throwing in a far hook. From here, very easy for us to get second hook, using a power half Nelson to break our opponent down, taking the back. All right, so we're talking about wrestling up on our opponent, but we're meeting that resistance through a sprawl. From here, we first want to start off with upper body grips. As my opponent pulls away, I get a knee tendon grip, and I pull myself up into the single leg. My opponent did a good job of sprawling, so I make sure that my head doesn't come down towards the mat. All right, so I unlock my hand so I can post keeping my head up. My right hand snakes down by the shin. All right, I'll use this. I can't hold this forever, but I use this time to now step around, getting a Kosoto hook. Don't make the mistake of coming up to the waist too early. I want you guys to shoot your shoulder behind your opponent's hamstring. Notice how my right knee, let's rotate just slightly. My right knee starts to flare in slightly, and I grab above my opponent's knee like so. This makes it easy for me to access my opponent's shin and shelf it on my left leg. So I look to shelf, and then before I move to the waist, I make sure that I grab above the knee once again, and now I can build to the waist. One thing that we can do, we can shoot that low double, breaking our opponent down. One of my other favorites is just throwing in that right hook. I'll post my left hand on the mat so I can swivel my hips around. I throw right hook, making sure that this becomes a long hook first. Then from here, I bring my head above my opponent's head to throw in that left hook. I use a power half Nelson to break my opponent down, and we're good to go. One last time, looking to wrestle up on my opponent. We start off with upper body grips. As he pulls away, knee tendon grip, and I shoot my single. He goes to sprawl, I keep my head up by posting, and I grapevine my hand down by the shin. From here, I get my right Kosoto, making sure that my right shoulder comes behind my opponent's hamstring. I grab above the knee with my right hand. Let's just rotate so everybody can see. I grab above the knee with my right hand. Notice how my right knee is flaring in, makes it very easy for me to access this shin. I like to shelf my opponent's leg, stepping my left leg up, grabbing above the knee and around the hips. From here we can shoot our double leg or post a hand on the mat, throwing in the right hook, making sure that right hook is a long hook first. Then to throw my left hook in, my head comes forward. Very easy for me to insert that left hook. We go power half Nelson, and now we're on the back, ready to go. All right, let's give that a shot. 1, 2, 3. All right, so what we did was we went up for the single leg, met some resistance through that sprawl, right? And we understand that the sprawl essentially wants to bring my head down. We denied that by first a post to keep my head height, and then we used a Kosoto hook to start cutting an angle around our opponent. Now, one thing I mentioned is that when we're in this position, he goes for the sprawl, keep our head up, all right? We step around, he inserts a whizzer. I wanted to keep my right shoulder behind my opponent's hamstring in order to go for the shuffle. I'm just gonna rotate so the camera can see. So when I'm here, I drop my shoulder behind my opponent's hamstring, all right, so that whizzer's pretty much nullified, and makes it very easy for me to start shuffling up this leg. There are some times where your opponent is strong with this whizzer, is able to pull this up, and now we're in this dogfight position, all right? Understand that you want your outside leg up for the most part, all right? If your opponent steps up his outside leg, you're definitely gonna want your outside leg so you can start driving into your opponent. Very important that I wanna try to get my hips behind my opponent for this position, okay? So I wanna be behind my opponent. I don't really wanna try to go above my opponent. And when I'm in this position, I feel like my opponent can really start throwing me forward. I actually want to start working this behind. When I work behind my opponent, it essentially gets my opponent's whizzer hand behind him, behind his own body, all right? So whenever your opponent's limbs are behind their body, it makes it very weak. And then from here, pretty easy for me to throw this second hook. But now we're gonna say that my opponent did a good job of applying some pressure. So from here, I wanna make sure that I can get a nice Kosoto hook with my right leg. As I feel this pressure, I'm actually gonna scoop underneath my opponent's body with left hand and look to grab something like so. Now, if your opponent keeps the whizzer, it should be fairly easy to roll him through, but honestly, that won't really happen, all right? As you go for this dive, and he starts pushing me down, he'll release the whizzer and stop that sweeping motion. When I'm here and I feel this motion, look at my left foot will dig into the mat, and I bring my head just outside my opponent's back first. Then from this position, I use my right hand to pull my left ear to the back, and I build up onto my left elbow. Very important that I use my left ear and not my right ear. If I use my right ear, he just reinserts that whizzer, and we follow that same problem, okay? So now he starts throwing me down. I try to resist it, but I just can't. So I go with the pressure. He posts on the mat. I use my left foot to bring my head just outside the back, and I pull my left ear to my opponent's back. Now when he goes to reach for a whizzer, the only thing he can get is an over back up at most. All right? Now, once I'm in this position, very easy for me to start building height, throwing in both hooks. From here, using that power half Nelson to break my opponent down, and then now we have the back. All right, so now, we're trying to defeat the whizzer. The first method that we used was we brought our shoulder underneath our opponent's hamstring to defeat that whizzer. Next, my opponent started to lift me. That whizzer is becoming very strong. So we used a sweeping motion to make him want to release that whizzer. So from here, same idea. We play at the upper body. We go to the lower body. We feel that sprawl. I keep my head up first. I go for a Kosoto, and then from here, he's strong with that whizzer, starts hiking me up. Very important that I want to start making sure that my left leg is up. I'm posting on the mat to deny, but he's doing such a good job with that whizzer. It's so strong, my head's coming down. When I feel this, I dive underneath my opponent's body, and I look to get a scoop grip around his far leg. So from here, I scoop, he releases that whizzer. From here now, I use my left foot to bring my head just outside. I build my left ear to my opponent's back. Very important that the left ear comes to the back. Now, when I'm here in this position, I don't want him to reinsert that whizzer right away, so my right hand pulls towards Cam's left hand, all right? Just it adds a little bit of weight. It doesn't feel like much, but it'll get you like a half a second. So I'm pulling towards that left hand. From here, I bring my head out, I pull left ear up, and I just build up to my left elbows first. All I'm looking to do is build that head height, that ear to back connection here. From here now, it's fairly easy for me to start building up, making sure that I have that dominant position. I can run to the far side. You guys can get your hooks on either side, doesn't really matter. But now we're behind our opponent, defeating that whizzer. All right, one last time. Starting at the upper body, he pulls away. I go to the lower body. I get my single, he sprawls. I make sure that I maintain height, get my Kosoto, but from here, he starts hiking me up. From here, I try to deny, but he's pushing me down. I scoop underneath, he posts. I make sure that I'm pulling towards that left hand, head comes out, ear comes up. From here now, it's about building height. Fairly easy for me to start throwing my hooks in. Power half Nelson. We successfully broke our opponent down, and now we have the back. All right, let's give that a shot. 1, 2, 3. The power half. All right, there's nothing wrong. You know, you have one hook in. I'm seeing sometimes people play with one hook and they go in for a power half like so. I'm not saying it'll never work. You know, it definitely works. I've seen it done a bunch. I find it's a bit more effective, all right, if you have your second hook, or you can lock a high ball ride around your opponent's far hip. Okay. From here, it's super easy to get that power half. Sometimes, if you go for the power half where there's one hook, you know, sometimes you can start to slide off, or you know, you kind of lose control. All right, so it's probably safer if you guys can lock a high ball ride. So let's just rotate. If you can't get that second hook in, right, so obviously you can't get the second hook in, it's probably best to get a high ball ride. So I usually start to snake in behind that second hamstring, and I try to get my knee over his far hip. All right, so now I'm kind of controlling both hips, and then from this position, pretty easy for me to start going for this breakdown, and I can look to stretch my opponent and insert that second hook. Okay, so when you guys play around, it's probably a bit safer. Try to get a high ball ride or a second hook before using that power half Nelson. All right.